Since you're here, let me show you step by step how I achieved my castle look fire pit. The first step to the fire pit is just having a visual on what you want your fire pit layout to look like. Next, you want to go ahead and outline your fire pit. A lot of people use chalk lines and other materials to go ahead and outline the fire pit, but I found that this was the easiest way to do it because I didn't want to go out and have to buy any extra materials. As you can see, I'm not going too deep into the ground. I'm literally just using this shovel to break the surface of the grass. So as you can see, I've sped things up because I'm going to be doing this all the way around. However, I do want to emphasize that you want to make sure you get every corner to corner. And I'm also going to take the time to just go ahead and tell you, if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe so you can see many more DIYs just like this one. So I know there's plenty of videos on YouTube of people using different materials to make their fire pit. And I'll go ahead and say that the reason that I chose cinder blocks is because I wanted a square look, not a round look. And I also had plenty of cinder blocks just laying around in the backyard. And so it was easier to use those than any other material. After you have the layout of your fire pit all etched out into the grass, go ahead and remove whatever material you're choosing to use for your fire pit. You won't need it for the next step. And as you can see, the shovel method gives you your guidelines for where to dig. And oh, trust me, you're in for a lot of digging. And assuming that you've already called 811 to find out where all your power lines are, let's go ahead and dig in. So as you can see here, I'm using a similar method to what I did previously in the video. However, this time I'm going to take the shovel and almost lift the dirt up to whatever depth that I want the fire pit to be. Which in my case, I only wanted to go 3 inches. And a way that you can make sure you only go whatever depth you're choosing, I went ahead and put a piece of tape on the inside of my shovel that let me know how far to put my shovel into the dirt. And a little side note, when choosing the depth of your fire pit, make sure you account how thick your grass is. So basically my backyard was sod, so I knew exactly how thick the grass was. But you can do that by digging out just a tiny piece so you could get an actual measurement of how far you want to dig. And while I'm mentioning the depth of your fire pit, I want to go ahead and re-mention calling 811 before you start to dig, because the last thing you want to do on a nice sunny day is die. And since one of the main reasons that I'm recording this video is to make building a fire pit for someone else a lot easier, I feel like it's important to mention that since my fire pit was squared, I feel like it would have been a lot easier to use a squared shovel. So keep that in consideration. Okay, I'll go ahead and be quiet and I'll come back and talk to you guys in just a bit. And I know earlier in the video, I mentioned how it would be easier to use a squared shovel, but Cam disagrees and she wants me to let you guys know that it's much easier to just use your hands. No matter the shovel you choose, or if you choose to use your hands like Cam, just know that it's a lot of work, but it'll all pay off. Woo. Talk about a workout. We'll be back when we're done digging. So after Cam and I were done digging, I went ahead and used a little bit of time to remove any debris that I saw sticking out, so sticks or roots. And I also went ahead and used my feet to do a little bit of leveling. This would have been a lot easier with a stomper, but since I don't own one and I didn't want to purchase one, I just went ahead and used my feet. And I just want to go ahead and mention that leveling the dirt in general is unnecessary. It doesn't really affect the fire pit in any way. This isn't a home, so it doesn't really matter if it's completely leveled. However, the more work you do here, the less work you have to do with the sand. And as you can see here, I'm going ahead and emptying out the bag of sand into the fire pit. And there's no particular way to empty the bag of sand. However, you do want to make sure you get it all across because you're going to be moving it around in order to level out whatever building material you're using for the perimeter of your fire pit. And what you can see here is me using a piece of scrap 2x4 that I had lying around. This step is unnecessary, so if you don't have any 2x4s laying around, you don't need to go and purchase one. You could always just use your hands and your feet. And here's the fun part of building a fire pit, getting to see it really come together. So as you can see here, I'm going to use my scale and I have a mallet. I'm going to reposition my cinder blocks to make sure that they're as leveled as possible. However, if you don't want to go through all those steps, it's not necessary. One of the main attractions of the world is the Leaning Tower of Pisa. So maybe you could go for that look. And here you can see how the sand can be used to level out your building material. And I hope you haven't put away your shovel quite yet, because fair warning, you may have to do just a little bit more digging. Okay, quite a bit more digging. I'll come back when everything's all leveled out. And here's how the first level of my fire pit looked all leveled out. So since I wanted to keep the option of moving my fire pit if absolutely necessary, I did not glue them together. However, I did use some of the dirt from the hole that I dug to go ahead and place inside the center blocks to keep them from being able to move around so freely. So at the start of day 2 on my fire pit project, I went ahead and emptied in the pea gravel rocks. And this is going to be very important to helping out with any drainage if it rains. So for the next step, I went ahead and used that same piece of scrap 2x4 to even out the pea gravel. However, again, the 2x4 is absolutely unnecessary. You could always just use your hands. And here's what it'll look like when it's all evenly spread out. And the next step in this process was to go ahead and empty out the bag of lava rocks into my fire pit. This is necessary to keep the air circulating to keep your wood lit. So since my fire pit was so big, I would have needed 2 bags of lava rocks in order to reach from corner to corner. However, since I'm so extra, I decided to put red lava rocks in the middle and then use black lava rocks to surround those red lava rocks. However, this does not play any important role into how the air circulates based on the color. This was literally just me being extra. So after the lava rocks were arranged to my liking, I went ahead and started to put down the second level of my fire pit. So what you can see here is Cam and I making sure the first level of the fire pit is free of any dirt. If the dirt is on top of the center block, it will not allow the second level to lay flat. So what you can see here is me using the same method that I used on the first level of the fire pit by putting some of the dirt that I removed from the area into the center blocks to keep them from being able to move so freely. So since I like the look of only having 2 layers to the fire pit, I went ahead and started placing my flat stones on top of the second level. However, if you're choosing to do 3, then you would of course wait until you do the 3rd level of the fire pit to start placing your flat stones. But again, it's very important to make sure there's no dirt on top of the center blocks so that you can make sure that the flat stones lie flat. In order to get the castle look that I wanted for my fire pit, I used 2 different size flat stones. Along the sides and in the middle, I used 2 by 8 by 16, and for the 4 corners, I used 4 by 8 by 16. After laying down the 4 by 8 by 16 flat stones, I decided that it wasn't dramatic enough. So I went back and laid down 2 by 8 by 16 on top of those, and this was the final result. So after lighting the fire pit that night, I decided that I didn't like the amount of air that wasn't getting to the fire. So as you can see here, I went ahead and turned a few of the center blocks on the second level so that the air could freely move through the holes. So on the 3rd day of this project, of course, I had to remove the dirt from the center of the cinder block. And here is just another angle of me repositioning the second level of cinder blocks. And this definitely took care of the airflow issue that I felt like I was having. So with some of the remaining dirt, I went ahead and placed it in the holes around the fire pit just to keep everything in place. And this was my final look. And don't worry guys, that wasn't free labor. Cam was paid in vegan s'mores. She's very happy with the fire pit. If you like this video, of course, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. And if you plan on trying your own DIY fire pit, go ahead and comment and let me know. I hope you enjoyed. See you next time.